Okay, discussing a couple exercises in relation to upper body plyometrics. I don't want to go super deep here because that could easily be its own topic, but just to get used to that idea of repulsion and acceleration from the upper body as well as the lower body. This one is very, very simple, but it's I think a good one to start out with for a lot of people, especially if they're not used to this training modality. So the goal, the reason I'm doing it on something elevated is so you don't use your hips, because what's going to happen is if you can't provide enough push through the arms and through the chest, the hips are going to do a lot of work. Sometimes there's a reasoning behind why you would use that, so I'm not saying it's wrong, but if the goal is plyometrics for the upper body, which is the goal here, it's better to have a little bit of elevation so you can focus on how to push from the arms. So really simple, it's just a push-up, right? So with the push-up, generally it's going to be different later with the arms up if we do it in a handstand, which is again a separate topic, not going to be covered in this series of videos, but we want the external rotation. So we want the elbows to go in because we're going to be able to absorb force a lot better like that. And then as we push out, I'm also going to add a flick through the fingers. So we're just teaching the arms to do similar things with the legs. So here, and then trying to come back to standing. So you can play with the height, you can go lower if it's too easy, but what I want to see is the full extension and then catch. And when I catch, it's going to be very similar to what I'm doing with the feet, right? I'm hitting the fingers first, I'm absorbing, I'm rolling through, and then I bend through the elbows and the shoulders. So the idea is that I can still be soft, catching myself on my hands. So, one, pa, shoo, pa. I can do continuous like that. So I'm using a little bit of that reflex to come back, or for more of a conditioning purpose, I can hold for a couple seconds and then push. The main idea here, and as I mentioned, the reason that we're using something elevated is so I'm not using the hips to cheat the jump from the upper body. I really want to focus on the arms. Second plyometric exercise for the upper body is going to involve a little bit of coordination because we're using the legs at the same time. This is a cool one. I think for a lot of people it's just as much of a coordination and timing challenge as it is a challenge of pushing off the arms and absorbing. And this is a soft movement, so the goal is to make it as soft as possible. And in order to do that, you have to understand that timing of rolling through the hand and bending the elbow with the timing of your jump to understand that proper deceleration. So it's going to look like this. You're going to like kind of a quadruped position, jump and land. Right, so when I jump, I'm doing a bit of push with the legs as well at the same time. So it's not only an upper body jump, but what I'm trying to do is, I'm not trying to go super high right now. You can always go higher, of course. I'm trying to jump and land with all four limbs at the same time. So not 1, 2, but everything at the same time. So I'm doing that push and flick through the fingers. And I can do it just like the push-up jumps we did. So I can do hold and catch, or I can try to do continuous. I love the way this exercise feels because it feels like I'm some sort of animal. It's a very animalistic movement, but it's a cool one to start understanding how to push and jump with the hands and the arms as well as the legs. Final upper body plyometric exercise, and it's not really only an upper body, it's kind of a combination of the whole body, but the upper body is very heavily involved. Please use something more sturdy than a folding chair when you practice this one. It just happens to be what I have available, and because it's not super sturdy, please note that I'm not going full power on this and I'm controlling it. You don't want whatever you're working on to collapse underneath you. So now that the disclaimer's out of the way, this one's the handstand snapdown. This is a really important drill for any kind of backwards tumbling that you're doing, because it's this acceleration that gives you power in your movements. So if you're doing any kind of work with round-offs, with back handsprings, this movement is going to be like a staple of the bread and butter, meat and potatoes of a lot of that power training. So it's you can do it on the floor. It's a lot easier to do at the height, to understand the positions. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to kick to a handstand, but I'm not going to go all the way up, because the point here, for this purpose anyway, it's not to go all the way up to handstand. It's just to get the hips up. And here's what's going to happen. The legs are going to snap down to the floor. As the legs go down, I push off the arms, and I want to finish completely standing up. So I want to finish in a vertical position, which means the legs go down, and that synergy has to work at the same time with the arms. I don't want to go too deep into technique on how to do this. I'm just going to show you a couple and then talk a little bit more. So ba, ba. Right, so see, as I kick my legs down, I'm pushing with the arms up. With this one, because I'm not going very high in the handstand, I don't have to work too hard. It's just about coordination. This is one where you want to be in the hollow position. So you snap to the hollow position. You keep a bit more body tension, because you're essentially, the next level of this is you're going to be rebounding into another skill, so you do want to have some tension when you land. I land in that rebound position that we talked about earlier, so I'm on the balls of my feet, my chest is up, I'm staying a little bit more hollow. So ba, ba. I wait till the legs come together before I do that snap down. Some people, so another technique that you can use, it doesn't look as clean, but it's an option, is to bend the knees. You get a little bit more acceleration in the snap, but if you're being judged on your form, it just doesn't look as clean. Later on, when you start doing this from a handstand, you're actually going to go from an arch as well. So that's kind of like the final level of this move, is you go handstand, you do arch handstand, and then you snap to hollow, push with the hands. The push with the hands here, compared to the other two upper body movements that we did, it's like a shrug and then a rounding and then a flick. So ba, ba, and I want to finish upright. So the key here is to land with the chest up. What you don't want to do is something like this, because then not only is the landing going to be heavier, you're not really helping yourself to generate the power, which is the whole point of this move. So handstand snapdown, just kind of introduction to some of the more technical stuff you'll see in backwards tumbling. Good thing to include, and as always, just something to play with that might lead to something else later on.